everyone, welcome back to another episode of Communicate 101 Speaking Writing Tips, your favorite podcast channel to build effective communication skills and bridge the gap between confusion and clarity. I'm your host Sarika Singh and I'm so excited to talk to you today. Let's get talking. Hey, how are you? It's been such a long time since we last spoke, isn't it? What have you been up to? How have you been? Long time no see. We often start conversations like this. So excited, so interested. But after that initial sentence, after that first sentence has left the domain of our mouth, there's often an awkward silence. The rest of the conversation often doesn't flow as naturally, as easily. For much of my life, I struggled with this. I was that conversationally challenged person. So going to parties, networking events, business gatherings terrified me. I was just so conscious. I didn't understand how people did it naturally. The time I did manage to gather the courage and go to an event, you would find me standing quietly in one lonely remote corner, hardly talking to anybody. And if someone did reach out to me, did come and try to speak to me, I would survive that introduction hello. But after that first one or two questions, which I would be answering in monologues like one or two words, I would find myself getting buried under the weight of simple questions. If somebody would ask me, "What do you do for a living?" there were more stretches of silence than actual conversation. Because I was answering in one or two words and that finished the conversation. I learned it the hard way with various mentors, gurus and programs along my path of learning. And being hands-on and extremely adamant about overcoming this weakness of mine, I learned many tricks and squared on many strategies to master the skill of building engaging, meaningful conversations that continue effortlessly. This podcast is dedicated to just that. It is a series of 3 parts, meaning it has 3 parts. In each part, I'll show you one smart strategy to carry on a conversation, making you confident in any social situation. So this week, I'll share the first strategy. I'm intentionally giving gap between the strategies so that you can try and see how it works for you in different situations, in different setups, and practice it. Because without practice, this podcast will only be a sermon, and I definitely don't want to be sermonizing. More than that, each strategy that I share is very detailed. To practice it, you need to own it, personalize it, internalize it. And that will take time. So you have a week, 1 full week. I would love it if you would share how it worked for you in the comments so that others like you can benefit from your practical experience. And over the next 2 weeks, I'll share 2 more super effective practical strategies to master the art of continuing conversations. And since there are 3 parts to this podcast episode series, don't forget to stay tuned over the next 2 weeks by hitting the bell icon at the corner. Without wasting another moment, let's start learning how to continue conversations and master the art. Let's roll. There's something which is bothering me these days, and I'm sure it's bothering many of you as well. So I'm going to share it. And that is cold calls. Suppose you're in the middle of a business meeting, or you're driving, or you're eating your lunch with friends, or you're doing something important, or even sleeping. Suddenly, your mobile phone rings and it's coming from some mobile number. You end up picking, it's a cold call. And these cold calls often run like, you pick up the phone and the person says, "Hi," and you politely say, "Hello, who's this?" The person says, in a very familiar tone, "Am I talking to Sarika Singh, Communication Skills Coaching?" And I'm thinking, is it a client? How did he get my number? Or is it someone I know because they seem to speak to with such familiarity? And the other person says, "Hello Sarika,
And then there's a pause. I'm getting impatient, royally impatient. For the life of me, I want to scream, just tell me what you want. The caller, after that pause, after the hi, hello Sarika, says, hi, how are you? Now I'm going crazy. I was driving and my phone battery is dying and I actually want to scream the truth. Well, my phone battery is dying. I have to be somewhere. My car broke down. My head is hurting. What else do you want to know? And he says, so, we have a promotion which ends today, ... And my short, sorry, not interested is what ends the call. Not to miss the sad, ugly frown on my face. Sorry for sounding that haughty. Sorry for sounding disrespectful to the cold callers. But yes, it's a big put off. The fact is, neither one of us really cares about how the other is doing. Now that was a conversation where nothing was accomplished. It was a complete waste of both of our times. Customer care executives often struggle with how to engage customers in conversations. So this particular episode is particularly relevant if, apart from everyday life, you're in any customer-centric business. What's up is one of the most dreadful words to say. It's short for, hello, I'd like you to entertain me now. And the typical response to what's up is usually, not much, you? End of conversation. Conversation is like a game of ping pong and there has to be a back and forth to it for it to flow. It doesn't matter where you are, whom you're talking to, a friend, stranger, boss, colleague. The conversation can quickly run cold. It can become awkward, boring, embarrassing, weird, and all of these things at once. Suppose you don't know how to continue the conversation. Suppose you know some good conversation starters. Is that enough to have a good conversation? Sadly, no. If you've jumped into the waters, you need to know how to tread, how to swim. You need to be smart enough to keep the conversation going. The other person should not be bored with you. He should want to meet you again. He should want to speak with you again. You don't want to ramble and speak without making any sense. And that is when the conversation becomes super boring. I'll show you today how to keep a conversation going, especially if you're in the middle of a talk that's drying up. The techniques will help you keep things moving forward and making friendships you totally deserve.
So what is a good conversation? When one person does all the talking? Or both talk at the same time? When one speaks or the other listens? Or when there's a long silence after every dialogue? And secretly everyone's trying to escape from that chat room. You're right, none of these. Some people know how to start conversations but will never end the conversation. Some people take center stage. They're the only ones who are talking. The other ones are just watching, mute members. But for an effective communication, a balance between both is mandatory. The strategy I'm sharing today to never run out of things to say in a conversation is what I call the catch method. CATCH, catch method. And catch is not an acronym. What you do in this is very simple. You need to give the other person, the person you're talking to, a path, a route through the conversation. If there's a path, chances are you both will walk along well on that path. Let me show you what it's like without the path. What's up? Just finished lunch. You? Yeah, ditto. 4 sentences, 4 short words, conversation finished. The conversation dies out right there. Now, in case you use the catch method, the conversation not only becomes interesting and engaging, it doesn't die out. What you need to do is, when somebody says something, you catch a word from his words and think what that word reminds you of. And then You talk about the word that you just caught. So you don't need to keep thinking, constantly thinking of new things to talk about. You can simply use what the other person is saying. And believe you me, this will keep him interested. Now let me show you the same conversation that I did a while ago with the catch method. So without the catch method, it goes like, "What's up? Yeah, just finished lunch. You? Yeah, ditto." Now with the catch method, "What's up? I just ate lunch. You?" Speaking of lunch, there's a new vegan restaurant opened across the street and they have a meal deals. We must check it out. "Oh, great. Sure. Difficult to find vegan restaurants in this part of town. There's mostly junk food here." "Oh, yes. Junk food is a complete no-no. How much weight I've put on in winters eating the fries. God, my husband was ogling at all the wives in the office party." These office parties, you bet. Are you going to the next one? The next week? Next week? No, it's my sister's birthday. And she hates it if I don't appear for her birthday. God, birthdays. This conversation can go on and on and on. Everyone is catching the phrases, words from the other person's conversation. First person picked up lunch. Second person picked up junk food. Third, back again the first person picked up party. Like that, you keep catching the words and continuing the conversation. The conversation will not dry up. You see, so today try the catch method. And I'll catch you next week for our weekly catch up, and then we'll together catch the second strategy to continue conversations, meaningful conversations that build meaningful relationships. Before I sign out for today, I don't know who made this original quote, but I love it and I often share it in my workshops. While talking to customers, over the years, everybody has loved it. So it goes, "A poor conversationalist talks about himself. A good conversationalist listens to you. And a great conversationalist talks about you." I think that's a very meaningful quote. Think about it. Stay blessed.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Communicate 101 Speaking Writing Tips with Sarika Singh. If you want to be notified of upcoming episodes, be sure to hit the subscribe button and follow the podcast. I'll be back to share more stories, more life experiences, and more communication tips every Friday. If you want to reach me or connect with me, just put your comments in the comment box below or mail me at info@sarikasingh.in. I know you're going to rate and review this podcast, so a big thank you in advance. Stay tuned and think about what we talked today.